Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the virtual class for Thursday, March 6th. This is going to be a quick tutorial. I've given you one on how to set up a template before, but we're going to set up a template with a couple of other items in it. And so I'm going to talk you through everything, and then we can begin working on importing our WAV files when we return from break. So when you open up Pro Tools, let's go to the dashboard, choose the new tab, and then we're going to create a new session. I always like to, again, I mentioned before, I like putting the date on it because I have so many sessions, it helps me keep track of things. And then underscore MUS 340, MUS, let's call it Mix Project. And then finally underscore my initials. Put your initials after it so that we can keep track of all the files that you would export once you're doing your mixes. We want to make sure that we are not creating a session from a template, so don't check that box. Make sure we're at 48 kilohertz, 24-bit, and that it is interleaved, and then choose your location for where you want to store it. I'm going to store it in my documents folder for the time being. I'm going to click create. And we get our empty session. So I want to create some new tracks, and let's create routing folders. We'll talk about what those are so when we get into class and show you how to use them more effectively, but for now just follow my process. Let's go to audio track, click on it, and choose our routing folder. Hit tab, and let's call it drums. Now if I want, instead of using my cursor to click on that and or clicking on the plus sign to create a new track, I can hold down Command Shift or Control Shift and use my down arrow, and it gives me a new track lane. Then I can also hold down just Command or Control, use my up arrow, and choose routing folder. And we're going to call that bass. We're going to make one for each instrument set of our mix session. We are going to guitars. Or guitar. Let's see, we're going to create a routing folder for vocals. Oops. And finally, we're going to create a routing folder for any auxiliary instruments we may use. And they are all, that's an audio track, so let's go back and make sure I change that to a routing folder. They are all routing folders. They are all named, and they are all stereo. That's what we want. I'm going to click create. And there we go. I've got my routing folders. Now, I do want to create some new auxiliaries. All right, and so we're going to go ahead and again, using Command Shift or Control Shift N, I am going to now hold my Command button or Control button and use my down arrow and choose an auxiliary input. I also want to hold down Command and use my left arrow and right arrow. Actually use the right arrow, and you can change it to stereo. And we are going to call this small reverb. And then we're going to hold down Command Shift or Control Shift with the down arrow, and we're going to create a new one. I'm going to use the same process that we've used before. Oops, I want to use an auxiliary track, and I want it to be stereo. I'm going to call it medium reverb. Reverb. There we go. And again, same thing, stereo, auxiliary, and large reverb. We're also going to go ahead and down. We're going to create another auxiliary, and we're going to call this mix track or mix bus. And then finally, we are going to create one new track. It's going to be stereo, and it's going to be an audio track, and we are going to call it print track. And I'm going to click OK, and there you go. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead, and you'll notice that it's gone into the auxiliary folder here. It should be listed auxiliary. Sorry, I'll change that. But they've all ended up inside that folder, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to click. I'm going to drag to the right and come out of it, and you notice that they're no longer encircled by that blue line. They're all separate. Let's just double click on this. There we go. We'll call it auxiliary. And then I'm just going to go up and choose reverb. for the time being. And you've got a few. I've got a bunch here that you don't have, but you can always use Deverb. You can use the Air Reverbs. That's part of Pro Tools. Reverb 1 is Pro Tools. Revive is Pro Tools, and Space. And so I might use Deverb for one, and then maybe what I'll do is choose a small for the time being. I can always change it instead of a hall. Maybe I want a plate, or I want a room size, or whatever the case may be, but we'll go with small for now. And then I'm going to come over here and let's just choose, and you don't have to choose these reverbs. You can experiment with them and see which one you might like. Well, let's go ahead and do the Air Reverb, and let's kind of do a medium size and see what it offers us here. Go to factory default. Let's just choose a medium hall. Again, you may not like the reverbs that you start out with. No problem. We can change them around. And then finally, let's go to Space. I've always liked this. This is that convolution reverb. And this is fairly sizable. So I'm going to leave it where the default is on this church in Budapest. Or it's in the Netherlands, excuse me. And this is the one that defaults to when you go into it. Going to the mix bus now. So now what I want to do is I'm going to highlight. I'm going to click on large reverb and holding down shift. I'm going to click on drums. I'm going to hold down option shift, and I'm going to go to their output. I'm going to click on the output. I'm going to go to the bus output, and you'll notice down here at the very bottom, well, my bad. I need to do this first. For the input here, I'm going to go ahead and use my bus, and then I want to use the mix bus. And then I'm going to come over here. If you don't have mix bus, you can choose an auxiliary input or a bus input if you wish to do that. It's totally up to you. But I am going to go ahead and just hold down option shift, and now I'm going to bus, and I'm going down here, and you will notice that I've got mix bus. I'm going to click on that. Everybody's output is now going through the mix bus, and you'll notice that in 1 and 2, I actually want to choose bus 1 and 2, and I'm going to come out of that bus 1 and 2, and so now everything is going through my mix bus into the print track. That's all I want you to do. We'll talk about how to get signal into the auxiliaries when you come back, and this way you've got yourself a template set up so that you can import all the different audio tracks and begin mixing when we return from break. That should do it. Thanks everybody. I appreciate it, and I will see you all on the Tuesday after spring break. Have a good and have a safe and restful break too.